So you want to roll a witch? Well, here's what you need to know. Witches are a lot like wizards. I'm just fucking around, they're totally different classes. One is a prepared spellcaster with an initially limited number of known spells that can be expanded over time, and the other lets you pick your spellcasting tradition. All jokes aside, witches are often characterized as victims of the why play X when you could play Y mentality. I'm sure you've seen it before. Why play an oracle when you could play a divine sorcerer? Why play a war priest cleric when you could play a champion? Why play an investigator when you could shove baby teeth into your urethra?
I'm so fucking cool!
Because they can pick their tradition, witches invite comparisons to the other casters that have unique gimmicks and /or access to their entire spell list. There are some points in the witch's favor though, not the least of which being their character flavor. Unlike those nerds who have to study or follow special rules to get magic, witches are granted their power by an unknowable patron who communes with them through a familiar. Not only are there no hard rules on what your patron can be or whether you even know what it is, I think there was some flavor text that said you don't even have to have agreed to be a witch in the first place, which is the best thing. You could just be on your porch smoking a blunt when some frog hops up and says, "You're a witch, Harry," and that's that. The backstory potential alone would be enough to sell certain players on giving the class a shot. But they also have plenty of mechanical benefits as well. Something that may surprise you is just how much free shit witches can get. Free potions, a free wand, and a free flying broomstick with future upgrade potential. It's worth noting that potions are not the same thing as elixirs. We're not stepping on your turf, alchemist, put the crowbar down. You also have access to unique unarmed attacks, which can gain added effects, as well as make your target more susceptible to your hexes. Will these attacks ever hit anything? Fuck no, but living hair isn't limited to the hair on your head, and I will fight any GM who tries to stop me from playing Boba. There's also some neat teamwork feats you could pick, from nannying one or more of your party members to playing hype man to your party's other casters to boost their spells. Also, remember that familiar your eldritch sugar daddy gave you? Well, what if I told you that familiar could slash up an enemy while holding them down, or blast one guy while healing another? And if you want that cosmic manager of yours to get off their ass and actually do something for once, they can use your familiar to stupefy anyone who comes near, or rip a chunk out of someone's soul. Remember, they can do that next time you need to request time off. Now, you might have heard me mention hexes earlier. Well, those are the unique cantrips and/or focus spells the witch has access to. As the name would suggest, they mostly involve picking a single target and saying, for the next minute, fuck you in particular. Some, however, target and buff your allies, so it's still fuck you, just with a different connotation. The focus spells can be picked a la carte from certain feats, but the cantrips are part of what could charitably be called your subclass. Your patron's theme helps define the otherworldly being you serve, as well as what powers it gives you, including your spell list, a hex cantrip, and a unique familiar ability. These familiar abilities trigger off of casting or sustaining a hex. Since that hex cantrip is probably going to be the most common way you trigger this ability, you can think of it as hex cantrip DLC. Considering maintaining both of these abilities will probably take up your third action each turn, they can make or break your character. So let's see if any of them are worth it. Holy shit. Yep, definitely worth it. Frightened and Sickened are two of the strongest debuffs in the game. -1 to everything on 1 to 2 targets for up to a minute? Howl of the Wilds fucking ate with this one. Up next, even if it weren't the only option for Divine Witches, I'd imagine Faith's Flamekeeper would still be hard to beat. Their buffs don't scale all that well, but a single action boost to offense and defense each turn is still gonna have your front line begging to give you the sloppiest of top IRL. I should know, I watched it happen. I gave them a hero point for it. Ripple in the Deep is kinda mid. Hindered Vision and Forced Movement are all well and good, if you're one of those tactical types who plays CRPGs on hardcore mode and are used to needing every advantage you can get. But for us non-masochists, it's not even the best Primal Witch in the same splat book. Same thing goes for Silence and Snow, but I do think it's worth noting that this is the only hex cantrip that actually does damage. Weird as it might sound coming from me, I'd almost prefer it not do damage in favor of more tangible debuffs. What good is impaired movement once the melees are in position anyway? I have two problems with Spinner of Threads. 1. Being off by a single point on a check isn't a common enough occurrence for this spell to be worthwhile. And 2. Nudge of Fate isn't sustained, so you can't even use it to trigger your actually useful familiar ability. Unless one of the focus spell hexes catches your eye, skip this one. Starless Shadow's ability to all but guarantee one creature stays frightened is pretty good. The potential to somehow conceal your familiar in the middle of a group of enemies to make them all frightened makes my nipples tingle. This is just a fantasy, of course. Take it from the Bomber Alchemists and Cleave Barbarians. They never stand as close together as you want them to. Okay, one option for Arcane Witches. You are basically a wizard whose spellbook has legs. How does it stack up? Well, you can buff an ally's Recall Knowledge checks, and it allows your familiar to flank. Wait, familiars can't flank? Huh. Well, I'll be damned. Giving a target an unremovable sickened condition? Very nice. Extend debuffs for an extra round? Also nice. No notes on this one, it's just...
nice.
I take back what I said earlier. There is one more Hex cantrip that deals damage. It's just situational damage in the same vein as a Champion's Reaction. This subclass also gives your familiar the ability to fly. Small problem though, familiars can already do that. Particularly ones from a wing-themed patron, I would imagine. And lastly, we have the Wilding Steward. Decent cantrip, but the familiar ability is what I want to focus on. Assuming your GM isn't the type of dick to make you guys fight invisible enemies every other encounter, I wouldn't expect this ability to come up much in combat. I'm thinking maybe you could use some combination of repeat a spell and search in some kind of hunting or tracking scenario? But I can't find any rules saying whether familiars even get their own exploration activities, and Devour of Decay would still be the best option for Primal Witches, so I see no point in delving any further. So you see, there are plenty of reasons to pick the Witch over other spellcasters. They're just baked into character options that most players wouldn't notice while skimming through the rulebook looking for their next character. Plus, its niche as a single-target-oriented support caster allows it to occupy a unique design space among the classes. Will this be enough to convince the subreddit creatures? Probably not, but let them ratio me anyway. It's how I know I'm right.